Welcome to the Child Anxiety FAQ podcast. FAQ stands for Frequently Asked Questions, and I'll be answering your questions about child and teen anxiety. My name is Dawn Friedman, and I have been working with kids and families for over 30 years as a preschool teacher, parent educator, family case manager, clinical counselor, and now as the facilitator of Child Anxiety Support, a program for parents of anxious kids. All right, let's get started. This week's question is my anxiety causing my child's anxiety? Although actually the person who sent me this question had a question about their partner. They think their partner's anxiety is causing their child's anxiety. And they wanted me to basically tell their partner to stop being anxious. At least that's what the email sounds like. And obviously I can't do that. I can't tell you to just stop being anxious. I can't tell anyone to just stop being anxious. When did that ever work for anyone? Instead, let's talk a little bit more about parental anxiety and child anxiety, because I think when we're looking at the family system, it almost doesn't matter where the anxiety starts. But let me back up a little bit. Can parental anxiety cause child anxiety? Yes, absolutely. But that doesn't make the child anxiety not real. And it doesn't mean that the answer is to just tell the parent to stop being anxious. Anxiety develops in different ways. And when it comes to parental anxiety and child anxiety, it can develop, yes, from the parent, as in the parent is anxious and behaves in anxious ways, and the child either catches the anxiety, or the child inherits the anxiety genetically, or the child learns how to be anxious because the parent is anxious. For example, if a parent was scared of spiders, the child might learn to be scared of spiders because every time there's a spider in the house, the parent jumps and screams, and the kid says, "Oh, okay, I got it. Spiders are dangerous." Or the parent may tell the child, "Stay away from spiders. Spiders are really scary. Don't be around spiders." So the parent may show the child how to be anxious, or the parent may actually tell the child how to be anxious. And yes, then the child has learned to be anxious. But also the child may be scared of spiders because they share the genetic brain of their parent if they're related, because not all kids are related to their parents, but they can, of course, inherit anxiety from their biological parent. So there's all of that. And again, maybe the parent is acting in an anxious way, which is creating the child's anxiety. But what is happening is a pattern, and we need to interrupt the pattern. It is unrealistic to ask the parent to stop being anxious. However, it is realistic to teach them how to confront their anxiety, how to recognize when their anxiety is driving the bus, and how to unhook from their child's anxiety. The parent is in charge of the pattern more than the child is in charge of the pattern. And that's because the parent has more power in the family. The parent decides lots of things about what happens in the family and how things function, but also the parent has greater insight because their brain is fully developed and the child's brain is not fully developed, so the parent can interrupt the pattern. When people say, "Is my anxiety causing my child's anxiety?" I almost think it's the wrong question, because it doesn't really matter whose anxiety is causing whose anxiety, because you can also catch anxiety from your anxious kid. It's more about how can we recognize the pattern, how can we interrupt the pattern, and how can we support the parent in figuring out how to interrupt the pattern long-term over time as anxiety springs up in different places and different times. This is why working with parents is oh so important, because even if the child is doing all this anti-anxiety work, if the parent is still acting within those anxious patterns, then the anxious patterns are going to stick. Often when a partner comes to me and says, I think it's my partner's fault, I think they're causing the anxiety, it's creating conflict in the family that is not helpful. I understand that sometimes the non-anxious parent can see the anxious patterns And yes, we do need to work with that parent who is caught up in the anxious patterns, but it is not helpful to point fingers and assign blame. The other thing to think about here is the parent who is not part of the anxious patterns sometimes is just not part of that anxious pattern in that context. In other words, sometimes they are not the main caregiver. Sometimes they are spending less time with the child. Sometimes they are simply not as involved in the anxiety-provoking situation. For example, if the child's anxiety comes out when they're getting ready for soccer, maybe the parent who is saying, "Ugh, this person is causing anxiety," is not the person who prepares them for soccer. On the other hand, maybe they are. Maybe they are the main caregiver. Maybe they are also an involved parent. Maybe they are simply witnessing anxiety patterns. Rather than pointing fingers, I think it is helpful if the whole family works together so they're all on the same page. Here, let me give a shout out to my program. When a person joins one of my programs, they are welcome to bring in another parent or caregiver so we can get on the same page, so we all understand what's happening, so we are all practicing the same intervention and not just working at odds with each other. Occasionally, someone will come to me and say, my child lives in 2 households and the other household is perpetuating anxiety and I am not, and I need you to fix that over there. Well, I can't fix that over there unless the person over there wants to be a part of the fix, but you can change things in your family. And my experience has been that children can learn the way 2 different households operate and can often raise their level of functioning in one family, even if their anxiety is still tricky and patterned in the other household. We can only be responsible for the work that we do with our child. We cannot be responsible for anybody else's work. And doing our work is important regardless of what's happening in our child's other home. I know it's frustrating. Life is imperfect. We can't use that as an excuse to not continue to do our work and send our child the message that they are strong and capable and brave and can handle anxiety. If you have thoughts or questions about this, particularly what it might mean to work in my program, if another parent is on board or not on board, then I encourage you to reach out to me so we can talk some more about this. I know it's complicated, but mostly what I want to say is, can your anxiety cause your child's anxiety? Let's not worry about cause and agree that yes, parental anxiety can perpetuate child anxiety can perpetuate parent anxiety. Anxiety is a tricky family pattern, but we can interrupt it with the right information and support. Thanks for tuning in this week. If you have a question you'd like me to address on the show, please go to childanxietysupport.com/question and you can post it there. Maybe I'll address it on a future episode. And if you'd like to learn more about my program, you can visit childanxietysupport.com. Thanks so much and have a great week.